Back in March, Admiral Philip Davidson, he's the head of the United States Indo-Pacific Command, he issued a dire warning about the likelihood of war breaking out between the United States and China over Taiwan.
I worry that they're accelerating their ambitions to supplant the United States and our leadership role in the rules-based international order, which they've long said that they want to do that by 2050. I'm worried about them moving that target closer. Taiwan is clearly one of their ambitions before then, and I think the threat is manifest during this decade, in fact, in the next 6 years.
Now, 6 months later, the situation's getting worse. As Beijing flexes its muscles in the South China Sea, Washington is wargaming a defence of Taiwan, and the results have US commanders worried. For his analysis on the state of play in the Western Pacific and what it means for Australia, I'm joined by Liberal Senator, retired Major General Jim Molan. Senator, thank you for your time. Outstanding body of work. It's more than just a column that you wrote for the Weekend Australian. The next 5 years are really shaping up to be a unique moment in history, dictated, of course, by a weak US president and a very strong Chinese president. Give me your assessment of the challenge, not just of Taiwan, but of our region.
Yes, Peter, good evening. Thank you for that. We face an extraordinary challenge going into the future. We've just seen Karen Andrews give a description of the competence that we're handling internal counter-terrorist activities with. And we've now got to, and we've had a great week last week where various ministers came out and made statements that go to the thing that you and I are talking about at the moment. And what we're talking about at the moment is, and what Phillips was talking about, what Davidson was talking about, is regional war. And I think most Australians generally think that we face a very uncertain future. We've never faced such dangers in the next couple of years since the end of the Second World War. But most of them are very, very complacent about it because there's this deep feeling in Australia, and I believe it's very strong amongst my colleagues, that the United States power is infinite. Now, we saw what happened in Afghanistan, and a lot of people have expressed concern about the competence and the intent of the administration in the United States. Okay, well, that's fair enough. But what I think is even more frightening, Peter, is the capability of the United States to deter China from doing very unsafe things in our part of the world. And generally they talk about it in terms, as Davidson just did, in terms of the Taiwan scenario. And when you say the Taiwan scenario, most people think, oh, well, that's just a little island just off the coast of China. If something happens up there, it won't affect us in Australia. Well, that is not true. What you said is the biggest problem we face. The Americans keep on running war games because they know that since the end of the Cold War, their military power has decreased by 30 to 50%. They run war games, Peter, and they find that they don't win. So if something starts to happen around Taiwan and the president says, OK, military, what can we do? The answer might be, well, we can go in and get defeated, if you like, Mr. President, or we can not go. Either of those are a disaster for this country, Peter.
So say they go into Taiwan and they're defeated, huge loss of prestige. It could trigger for us the ANZUS alliance because, of course, ANZUS, for those at home, isn't about an attack on a homeland. It's attack on the military forces of the United States or Australia that triggers ANZUS, so we could well be embroiled in it. If they were not to go in, if they were to leave Taiwan out there and there is an alliance of a sorts between the two countries, what would that mean then for all the other alliances that the United States has around the world, including our ANZUS alliance? There's some of the questions people are looking at. And of course, in this time, Jim, you know, we're spending, what, $270 billion over the next decade, but you say in the Australian, not enough quickly enough.
No, it's not. And for the past 75 years, Australians have decided that the size of their defence force, and it's not just the defence force, it's the nation as a whole. Every single minister has national security responsibility. But we've decided the size of our defence force, not based on any need, not based on what it has to do, based on what each successive government thinks they can afford. Well, it's about time that changed. I reckon there are 4 things that we can do, Peter. Very quickly, we've got to keep doing what the good ministers are doing at the moment. That is, they're fixing legacy problems. We've got to come up, the second thing, with a national strategy which goes across every part of the nation, including defence. We've got to prepare very seriously for enhanced grey zone. If people think that what China is doing to us, which a lot of people call grey zone conflict, is the worst it can get, well, it can get a lot worse than this. And the last thing in relation to defence, which is where we started, in relation to defence, we've got to start spending money on defence in relation to what the strategic environment demands, not what's left over when everyone else is finished in the budget. We've just spent $331 billion in 1 year on COVID. And yeah, good on us, we're doing well. But put that into perspective, we need to secure our future and we need to start right this minute.